Hi, friends. Welcome to a time of prayer and meditation with Pastor Buddy. That's me. It's been a long time since I've had a regular session. Christmas kind of took over, but we're back now, and it's good to be with you here on Thursday, just afternoon. This weekend is a special celebration, the remembrance of Martin Luther King Jr., commemoration of his birth, and yes, schools will be out and other events will take place, but it's a particularly good time to really focus on Martin Luther King, not only as a pastor and preacher, but as a prayer. Many years ago, I was at Princeton and at a conference with William Howard, who knew Martin Luther King very well. They were close friends and ministerial colleagues. And he told us about Martin Luther King and how Martin Luther King wanted to be remembered. He said many people remember him as a social reformer, a social prophet, but that's not how he wanted to be remembered. He wanted to be known as a pastor, as a follower of Jesus, as somebody who prayed and led the people of God in prayer and worship and action too. But at Martin Luther King's heart was a desire to be a follower of Jesus. And that gets lost a lot of times now on these weekends when there are special sales and other events, and of course school out, as I said, and other businesses. I want in these few moments just to focus a bit on Martin Luther King, the prayer, and some of the prayers of the African American community that sustain us and give a vibrant sense of a personal and real relationship with God. One of Martin Luther King's prayers that he prayed, and we have it in our worship book, and we're using it this Sunday in church, is this prayer that says it's a prayer for social justice. Pray with me. Yes, Jesus, I want to be on your right side or your left side, not for any selfish reason. I want to be on your right or your best side, not in terms of some political kingdom or ambition, but I just want to be there in love and in justice and in truth and in commitment to others so we can make of this old world a new world. Amen. I love that prayer. Martin Luther King was often known for saying, I just want to do God's will. That's all I want. And this prayer really sums that up. I just want to be where you want me to be. I want to be on your side, God. It's interesting. He doesn't claim that God's on my side or our side, but just like Abraham Lincoln had said long ago, that the question isn't, is God on our side, but rather, are we on God's side? That's the question. Martin Luther King prayed that way. There was another person of prayer in the African American community I really have loved through the years, and that's Howard Thurman. Howard Thurman was an African American preacher, prophet, mystic, contemplative, really unusual and incredible human being. He really was the architect of the civil rights movement, I believe, the spiritual architect. His many books, 20 or 30 of them, really outlined what a nonviolent movement should look like in order to bring racial justice in America. Martin Luther King carried one of his books around and read of Thurman, and actually was at Boston University when Howard Thurman was the chaplain there. And so Thurman had a big impact on Martin Luther King and the rest of the civil rights activists and leaders. One of his prayers that I particularly love, and it's also in our worship book in the Presbyterian Church, is this. Pray with me. Lord, open unto me light for my darkness. Open unto me courage for my fear. Open unto me hope for my despair. Open unto me peace for my turmoil. Open unto me joy for my sorrow. Open unto me strength for my weakness. Open unto me wisdom for my confusion. Open unto me forgiveness for my sins. Open unto me love for my hates. Open unto me thyself for myself. Lord, Lord, open unto me. Amen. And amen. Howard Thurman's works are incredibly nourishing, and I encourage you to read some of them. Pick up one of his books, go to the library and get one out. They're full of prayers and spiritual reflections. A wonderful resource from the African American faith community. Another book that I have, it's called Conversations with God. 2 centuries of prayers by African Americans. It begins in the 1700s. I've picked out a couple of prayers I thought were particularly meaningful and helpful right now. And one of those comes from, if I can find it here, James Forbes. James Forbes is an African-American preacher. He's been noted to be possibly one of America's top 10 preachers, one of the best. And I've gotten to hear him preach and speak in person and got to talk to him. And one funny little story was when I was in college and I was flying from Greensboro, North Carolina, back to Buffalo to go to Houghton College. I was at an assigned seat. I sat down, and next to me was a very dignified African-American man. He just looked really important to me, and I didn't know who he was. He told me his name and that he was a professor, actually the president of a seminary in Atlanta. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. I told him about my call to ministry and that I was going into ministry from college and onward. And he was very encouraging to me in my call. And I didn't really know who he was. His name didn't mean anything to me. And then many years later, I went to a conference, and James Forbes, Reverend James Forbes, was preaching. And when they gave his autobiography, his little bio rather, I thought, oh my goodness, that was James Forbes who was sitting next to me on that airplane flight back to Buffalo. And so I went up and I told him about it, and we laughed about it, and it was a nice connection. To have had that moment in that very encouraging man in my life early on, I'm very grateful for James Forbes. He went on to become the pastor of Riverside Church in New York City. Well, here's a prayer that he offers, a prayer, O God of love, power, and justice, from 1990. And it weaves together this weekend for Martin Luther King Jr. And so let me offer this prayer for us, for our nation. O God of love, power, and justice, who wills the freedom and fulfillment of all your children, we thank you for the constancy of your loving kindness and tender mercies toward us, especially on this day as we celebrate the birthday and life of your servant and prophet, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We are reminded that in every age you raise up seers and sayers and doers of justice. We marvel at the way by which you shaped a young black boy from Georgia into a towering figure of his time, to awaken the conscience of the nations, to rekindle a passion for freedom, equality, and peace, to redirect the traffic of human affairs from the back alley of bigotry toward the grand concourse of courage and compassion. We stand in awe at the marvelous networking by which you built a movement around a man of vision. It included blacks and whites, Protestants, Catholics and Jews, conservatives and progressives, rich and poor, business and labor. This coalition of conscience dedicated itself to the proposition that the American dream of freedom and equality could be made real through courageous action in a spirit of love, in pursuit of human dignity for all. This dignity includes all who suffer from homelessness, joblessness, purposelessness, carelessness, hopelessness. Because our needs are so great today and your care so constant, we know that you are rebuilding the network of compassion around new visionaries who you have assembled for this hour. Surprise us with the discovery of how much power we have to make a difference in our day, a difference in the way citizens meet, greet, respect, and protect the rights of each other. A difference in the breadth of our vision of what is possible in humanization, reconciliation, and equalization of results in our great city. A difference in the way government, business, and labor can work together for justice and social enrichment. A difference in our response to the needy, and a difference in our appreciation for those who give of themselves for the surviving and thriving of our beautiful people. Use this season of celebration to spark new hope and stir up our passion for new possibilities. Make compassion and the spirit of sacrifice to be the new mark of affluence of character. Strengthen us to face reality and to withstand the rigor of tough times in the anticipation of a bright side beyond the struggle. Inspire, empower, and sustain us until we reach the mountaintop and see that future for which our hearts yearn. This is our fervent and sincere prayer. Amen. And amen. Prayer of James Forbes on the occasion of the weekend of Martin Luther King's birthday celebration and remembrance, 1990. Well, here we are today, able and fortunately sustained by the African American faith community. I encourage you to take some opportunity to go to an African American church, to experience the vigor of worship and a celebration of the power of faith to overcome decades and centuries of oppression, of a faith that sustains in all of life and keeps us going when times are tough. Times are tough right now, and we need the African American faith community's faith tradition and its prayer to sustain us. So I encourage you to read some of these resources, to go online and just look up some. I know you can find many as well. As we come to the end of our little time here, I want to lift up one more prayer, and that is, Precious Lord, Take My Hand. It was a song by Thomas Dorsey, not Tommy Dorsey, the band leader that many people mistake him for, but Thomas Dorsey, who was a young man, a songwriter. He played for Ma Rainey and others back in the vaudeville days in the 1920s. And it's funny, I had to say 1920s because we're now in the 20s here, 2020s. And he came into a really vital faith relationship with God, and he began to write gospel music. He was known as the father of gospel music. But no one wanted his music because it was different. It was not hymns. It was something kind of out of vaudeville. It struck people as not being Christian, the sound of it. And so no pastor would take him in until one day he went, and right now I can't remember the church now. It was a Baptist church on the south side of Chicago. And he went and shared some of his music with that pastor. And that pastor said, "Son, you got a place here. You come and sing and lead us." And you know that he stayed from his 20s to his 90s in that church as the music leader, writing music and sharing his song and his relationship with God and faith. My wife Jan and my daughter Bethany and son Dan and I had the opportunity when he died to go to his funeral service. It was a long service, 5 hours. We made it 2 hours. There were a lot of dignitaries there and people from all over the world sending their consolations and their celebrations of the life of Thomas Dorsey. Well, as it turns out, his song, Precious Lord, Take My Hand, is really a prayer. And it was Martin Luther King's favorite song that he always requested. If you know it, I encourage you to sing along with me as I offer this, our final prayer today. Precious Lord, take my hand. Precious Lord, take my hand. Lead me on, help me stand. I am tired, I am weak, I am worn. Through the storm, on through the night. Lead me on to the light. Take my hand. Precious Lord, lead me home. When my way grows drear, precious Lord, linger near. When my life is almost gone, hear my cry, hear my call. Hold my hand, lest I fall. Take my hand, precious Lord, lead me home. And amen. I invite you to come and worship with us this Sunday. We'll be commemorating Martin Luther King's birthday with songs from the African American community, including Precious Lord, Take My Hand, and a message especially tuned into the theme as well. As I focus on that dream of Martin Luther King's, especially the line about his dream, when the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners sit down at the table of brotherhood and sisterhood. That's a prayer for today of reconciliation and justice and renewal. And that's our prayer this weekend. Oh Lord, may your justice and your love reign in our lives and in our world. Thanks be to God. Amen. Go, my friends, and be at peace. And know the Lord goes with you to sustain you for each and every day. Put your hand in the hand of Jesus, and precious Lord, take my hand and lead us home. Thanks be to God. Amen.